Welcome back to the channel, fellas. My name is Sweet Phil. If you are new, and you might have heard that you cannot actually respec in the end game in Diablo 4. It's kind of sort of literally what the devs said at one point. They said it'd be too cost prohibitive, so you wouldn't be able to really respec at the end of the game. You'd be better off just making a new character if you want to do different tasks or different type of gameplay. Now, context is incredibly important, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video, but we're going to check out a clip here from Riker. It's not the whole video. I'll put a link in the description if by some chance you wouldn't have known who he is. Make sure you give that guy a follow. Makes really great videos here on YouTube. But he was able to interview the developers of Diablo 4, and he asked them this very question. He asked them about that statement, and the context for their answer is incredibly important. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video right here. And I'm going to play this on 1.5 speed. I just get so used to watching everything on YouTube in 1.5 speeds. I almost can't stand regular speed anymore, so.
And he said that basically both sources of power, gear, and character are equally important to them. And this led to some discussions about the respec system. Rod called back to how in an interview with IGN, he was talking about how the deeper you go in levels, the more expensive it becomes to respec. And there's this analogy to hardening cement, that early on in the game, you're able to change your build quite a bit to experiment, but the more you are experiencing with your character, the deeper into the game you go, the more you become fixed on a certain build. And at the time, there were some questions over, well, does that mean we can't afford to respec at all? Is it prohibitively expensive at level 90 to respec? So I asked for some clarification here, and I confirmed that the idea is it is not impossible to afford to respec once you're high level, but you probably will not be able to afford to respec multiple times per day, so you're incentivized to make a new character instead, as opposed to in Diablo 3, where you're going to change your build multiple times per day depending on what activity you're doing. If you're doing speed content, you swap to your speed build. If you're doing bounties, you swap to your bounty build. In Diablo 4, instead, you'll rather have different characters for different purposes. But again, you can still respec. They just don't want you to be changing your build every 5 minutes, depending on what you're doing in game. Then another thing I wanted to ask about was...
Yeah, so that pretty much great context there. Great answer. Thank you, Riker, for asking that question, because to me, it's really important. I love the answer we got even. So yeah, big shout out, Riker. I'm really happy that you can actually respec. It sounds like essentially perfectly fine. Their context, from what I gathered from that response, is from how it is in Diablo 3, and I don't play Diablo 3. I couldn't stand the game personally, but apparently you could just respec just multiple times a day, and they didn't want it like that. They didn't want you respecing like 4 times an hour. Just every single quest you went and did, you respec for that particular activity or that particular quest for that particular individual monster or monsters that you'd fight. So apparently it's essentially more similar to Diablo 2, to be perfectly honest, where it does cost something to respec, but it's not going to be impossible. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that answer. So you aren't locked into necessarily the build you start the season with. Oops, I made a character that's not the best. I want to try this other build that I've seen somebody else do. You can go ahead and do that. And this was kind of something I had heard from somebody in my stream. One of my followers hopped in, said their son worked for Blizzard, and they said that actually you can respec even at the end game. He obviously has had been hands-on working on the game and trying everything in the game, and that's not exactly how it is, and that's not what they meant. It is literally what they said, but it's the context of the Diablo 3 and the Diablo 2 is very important. The different perspectives on not being able to respec relative to doing it every day, a billion times a day with no effort, or having to take effort to get out and farm the tokens of absolution, the pieces, in other words, the essence to make those. So I'm really glad we got some clarity on this question. Hey, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe up. And hey, everybody, hit that like button. If we get to 10 million likes on this video, I'm going to give out 10 million enigmas. So let's try to get there, fellas. All right? Yes, that's a joke. How am I going to 10 million likes? But peace out, fellas. And don't forget, keep slaying.